Hi everybody and welcome to my Unruly Housewife channel. Today I'm going to be looking at 12 things that you can do with your polymer clay extruder. Now some of you will have an extruder sitting around that you haven't really tried yet. Some of you will know some techniques. Some of you might be thinking, shall I buy an extruder? Well, an extruder, this is a very simple example. You pop your clay into the barrel, you select a shape, you screw it on the end, and you start to extrude your clay. It's as simple as that. Some extruders can fix to drills in order to drive it, mechanically. Some of them you have to do by hand. There are various prices, but anyway, let's get into the 12 ways that I've identified that you can use your extruder. I'm going to start with the simplest things, and as we go through they will become more complex. And the first things I'm going to look at are these. They're very simple. I'll show you which discs I used. This very fine disc here I used to make this grass and hair. You can choose the colour yourself, and I think you'll agree that's a very fine extrusion and something, it'll be hard to do by hand, but it's really simple to do with an extruder. You can go up to a larger size like this, and you can make vines and stalks for plants. Something like this. Some of these are hand rolled, but it takes a lot longer. And just pay attention to those little dots in the bottom there. You can see they're equal sizes. The little green ones. I'm going to explain to you how your extruder can help you to do that as well. Thing 3 that you can do with extrusions from your extruder is knitting. What I'm doing here is I'm taking 2 pieces of clay and I am rolling them, and you can see with my left hand I'm rolling that away from me, so I'm twisting them together away from me. I have got tutorials for some of these techniques and I will link to those in the description of the video, so don't worry. I don't expect you to learn how to do it entirely from this. This is just a list of suggestions of ways that you can get more benefit out of an extruder. So I twist with my left hand towards me now, so I did it away from me the first time and towards me this time. And I'm going to try and make these relatively uniform so that they're the same sort of tension. And then I line them up and push them together like that. I've done that quite quickly, but you can see there that makes a kind of plait, so that might be good for making hair. But what I'm going to do now is trim it. I'll cut it in half, put those pieces together, not very well measured. As you can see, we're starting to get rows of knitting. Isn't that brilliant? And I'll show you this example. I've used some different colours together as well there to give it an even more authentic sort of wool look, and then just twisted 2 together to make an edging. And now to thing number 4. Now you remember earlier I spoke to you about those dots. It can be quite hard if you want to make several dots in a piece of work and you want them all to be the same size. You can start picking out little bits of clay with your nails and rolling them and hoping that they're going to end up to be the same size, like this. But it's a faff. If you've got an extruder, it's really simple. You extrude them to the same width like that, so you've got one long extrusion, and then if you cut regular distances along that, you are going to make dots of the same size, because you know you have the same amount of clay in each dot, and then you can just roll them and they're going to be the same size. So there you go, that's thing number 4. Okay, we're ready for thing number 5, and this is using your extrusions to make edging, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to make an edging for this. Now I'm not really making it because this is already varnished, but let's pretend that I was going to make a decent edge on it. and see how we can do that with extrusions. Now I've chosen this shape here because I want to make a thin edging, and I've sort of lined it up against my object to make sure that it's a good fit, and it seems a reasonably good fit. Something like this, for instance, it's going to be too wide, right? So I wouldn't use that. So I use this particular one to make an edging for my pendant, isn't it? And the way you would do it if you were really going to fix it and bake it is just literally to lay it around the edge of this. I would use, if this was part baked, you know, I'd started baking, I would use liquid clay around the edge of this because it's already baked and I want to adhere the raw clay to it. And then I would fix my edging in place. Of course it would stick better with the liquid clay. And then I would trim it up and join it together. And you can get quite a nice join. Just cut it sort of, you can cut it at an angle, sometimes that helps. You can make a tidy join, and if I was making a pendant I might make my join at the bottom so that it was less visible. But you want to take time over that. And as you can see, the presence of that black edge just gives a nice definition to the piece that I didn't really achieve when I first made it. Moving on, you may want to do something a little bit more elaborate than that and make a textured edge, and for that I made a round extrusion like this. The way you do your textured extrusion is you take, in this case I'm taking this Lisa Pavelka border mould, which is called Simple Elegance, spritz with a bit of water, and then you would lay your fatter extrusion in there. I'm not going to get the pattern perfectly, it's just going to give a sort of a vibe to what I'm doing. Press, and I just use a rounded tool to do that. And bring it out. Now hopefully that's going to look nice. And it is. In fact, I'm going to press a little bit harder. Let's do the other end. This takes practice, but you know you've not lost anything because you can always do your extrusion again. So you just press, this time I'm going to press a lot harder, evenly along the tool. And then you've got a nice pattern that you can put around your thing. Now I'm going to trim this because clearly this would, you know, what I would do is shift it along, press again, shift it along, press again to get the proper length, but we don't have time for that. You can highlight your extrusion, patterned extrusion with gold like this, or any colour that you want really. Some nice mica powder. And then use that as a border. Now I've just done that really quickly. I wouldn't use gold on this, but you understand what I'm getting at there. It makes an entirely different look to your piece. So I will link to that tutorial because I haven't done a particularly good job of demonstrating it here. But yeah, so you've got edges and textured edges. That's thing number 5. Now thing number 6 you can do is to make bales, and they have to be the sort of fairly chunky bales, I think, fairly robust. But you can make a bale by twisting some extruded clay around an object. It could be a knitting needle, it could even be like the ink part of the inside of a pen, if that makes any sense. But you want something to be parallel and the size that you want. Twist the clay around, the extrusion around, and then trim it so that both your ends are on the same size, and you might want to do those at a little angle. When I have the edging on there, I can take my bale and press that on. I can put the raggedy bits, the trimmed bits underneath, press that on and slide this out. Now that's the theory, and it will make a bale for your piece. Can you see that? You've got to make sure it's still hollow through the centre. So I'll show you an example of some bales that I've made. There and there. As long as you give them a good long baking time, they work perfectly well. And I added a little bit of extra liquid clay onto these when I stuck them, just to sort of really beef up the join. But if you're using 2 raw pieces of clay, it should be fine. And I think they make really cute bales. And now we come to thing number 7, and thing number 7 is this, Soot Ash. And Soot Ash is a technique for decorating with extrusions, but I'm afraid I don't have an example of it. I haven't ever made it myself. This is probably the nearest I've come, but it's really not the same. So go on Pinterest, look on YouTube, look around, and you will find an example of Soot Ash, I promise you. And I'll put a link to somebody else's video down in the description so that you can check it out for yourselves. Soot Ash, that's thing number 7. Thing number 8 is ragged edge technique, and away we go. Here you have it. These are extrusions. They're quite fat extrusions actually, and what I did to make them was I chopped up polymer clay, and Fimo is really good for this because it's much less easy to condition than Primo is. So Fimo is a good candidate for this. You can chop up pieces of clay in colours that you like, quite roughly. Don't sort of blend it all together beautifully, just kind of squash it together in a sausage and put it into your extruder. Then you extrude, in this case I used kind of a round shape, and then you would run that shape, either you could roll it with a roller, but it's easier to run it through your pasta machine and kind of stretch it a little bit as it goes through, and it cracks. And it makes this really nice effect, and then you just coil it up. There's a tutorial for this, I will link it in the description. But yeah, number 8, ragged edge techniques. So we're up to thing number 9, and thing number 9 is tube beads, hollow extrusions. Now I can't show you an example of those because I bought these, which you need to pop inside your extruder to make these hollow extrusions. And unfortunately for me, they only fit the Makins Professional Ultimate Clay Extruder Stainless Steel Edition. Dearie me. So I bought them on the off chance that they would fit in mine, even though I could read and see that they weren't going to. And they arrived, and they're just so close to fitting my machine. I have a friend who's going to buy them from me, but what I'm trying to say to you is it is possible to make extrusions that have a hole through the centre all the way along, like a nice hollow tube of, you know, pasta or something, and that's a really useful thing. So hey, maybe one day I'll get a bigger extruder and get some things like this again, but I just wanted to show them to you because that is a possibility, and we are talking about possibilities today. Geometric canes. Now this is really interesting. I have a friend called Linda who makes amazing geometric canes. I've never tried, and so I decided yesterday to make a geometric cane, and using this triangle extruder I extruded 2 colours, and look at that. It's actually really simple to do. You have to work out your pattern in advance, otherwise you can get in a bit of a mess. But this is just one little thing that I made to see if it would work, and I'm really thrilled with it. You could use squares and other shapes like that, anything that would like tessellate, you can fit together and make some really interesting geometric cane. And that is, I've lost count. It's thing number 10, I think. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is retro canes. And to make retro canes, you need to cut out some shapes from some colours like this. I pre-prepared these, look, it's amazing. Sort of smush them together in a nice extruder sized sausage. And you can vary them up, you could double them if you wanted. And then once you've done that, you put them through your extruder, and believe it or not, they come out like this. And they're sort of different all the way through. So you can stack them up, cut them to length, put them together, and it will make a cane. I'm trying to look for my example here. It's just a little pendant. You can see I sort of stack those up. Now this was early days, so it's a teensy bit wonky, but you get the idea. You can also roll them up and make that, which is interesting. It's a kind of Swiss roll of retrocane. And thing number 12 is this. It's quite unusual, I know, but you can use extrusions to build foundations or sort of cages so that you can make 3D objects. In this case, I've baked them around a blown egg, and I can then add embellishments to that structure once it's baked, bake again, and in this case, or a slightly different one to this, a slightly more hollow one, you can put your egg into white vinegar overnight and the egg will dissolve. And I'm going to link you to a tutorial on that, but yeah, you can use extrusions to build nice strong cages as a base for something amazing. That is the last thing. They are 12 things that I recommend you can use your polymer clay extruder for. You may have some other ideas and you can put those in the comments down below. I always love to hear from you. It's great to be making videos again. I've been slightly lax lately since my mum died. I've not really made as many videos as I'd like to. I'm also like to thank some of my patrons on Patreon right now. I'd like to thank Isla Howarth, Marion Matthews and Aoife Smith Murphy. They are 3 of the patrons. I love to give my patrons a little shout out. They have stuck with me even though this has been a bit of a downtime in my life, and I want to thank them very much. If anyone else wants to support me on Patreon, jump in and do it. You'll never regret it. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Leave any comments, questions, ideas down below, and I love you all. Bye bye.